Salut tout le monde et bienvenue à un nouvel épisode du podcast. Mon nom est Joey Alfieri. What's up, everybody? I'm Joey Alfieri with you for another episode of the podcast. And we've got a lot to get to, a lot of developing stories in and around the Montreal Alouettes. And we begin, obviously, as we always do, in French. But our interview is going to be in English this week. It'll be a good one. It was a good one. Was able to catch up with Nate Behar, veteran Canadian receiver who joined the Alouettes, I would say about a third of the way into the year. So yes, Nate Behar will join us. That's an English interview that will be airing in the second half of this podcast. But as always, we begin in French, en français, avec ce balado. On commence en français, on finit en anglais. Comme j'ai mentionné en anglais, on a une entrevue avec le receveur Nate Behar. L'entrevue est en anglais, mais Nate parle un tout petit peu de français. On parle un peu de français. On a commencé en français avec Nate Behar, devrais-je dire. Nate Behar qui a subi une blessure pendant la semaine d'entraînement. Son cas sera déterminé juste après l'échauffement. Donc, Nate Behar devrait être en mesure de jouer. Devrait être en mesure de prendre l'échauffement. Par après, on verra. Mais c'était une semaine difficile pour les receveurs parce que c'est pas juste Barr qui s'est blessé. Là, je mentionne que c'est blessé pendant un entraînement. Tu sais, c'est possible que c'est une petite bobo d'un match qui est devenu pire. Mais Barr a pratiqué lundi et mardi, mais pas mercredi. Mais Austin Mack aussi, c'est ça la grosse nouvelle de la journée. Austin Mack a été placé. On est en train d'enregistrer ce balado jeudi après-midi. Austin Mack placé sur la liste des blessés des 6 matchs cet après-midi. Ce matin, quand on a publié la charte des positions des Alouettes, on avait vu que Mack et Barr étaient dans le même bateau, dans le sens où les deux étaient supposés de prendre l'échauffement et une décision aurait été prise par après. Mais c'est clair que Austin Mack ne jouera pas, c'est officiel, placé sur la liste des blessés des 6 matchs, comme j'ai mentionné. Donc, je sais qu'on en a parlé beaucoup, puis il y a beaucoup de joueurs sur la liste des blessés des 6 matchs, mais je voulais juste être clair sur, si vous êtes nouveau, si vous avez jamais écouté de balado encore, être placé sur la liste des blessés des 6 matchs, ça veut pas dire qu'un joueur va rater les 6 matchs. Mais ce que ça fait, c'est que s'il rate 6 matchs, son salaire ne compte pas sur la masse salariale pour les 6 semaines. Si jamais il rate, par exemple, 4 matchs et qu'on l'enlève de la liste des blessés des 6 matchs avant qu'il atteigne les 6 matchs ratés, mais là, son salaire va compter sur la masse salariale, même les semaines qu'il a manqué. Donc, c'est vraiment la liste des blessés des 6 matchs, c'est vraiment un outil pour sauver de l'argent sous la masse salariale si tu as un joueur qui est blessé à moyen long terme. Donc, c'est ça avec Max. C'est dommage parce que vraiment, ce que j'avais vu cette semaine, c'est Cody et Austin étaient de plus en plus sur la même page. Euh, et on dirait que c'était la relation sur le terrain qu'on avait vue l'année passée. Tu sais, ces deux gars qui étaient vraiment à l'aise. Tu sais, le début de pratique, je me souviens, jeudi, juste avant qu'ils se blessent, Mac avait attrapé un ballon au centre du terrain, vraiment un beau catch, beau lancer de la part de Cody Fajardo. Et je me suis dit à ce moment-là, je me suis dit, OK, là, ça va se replacer. C'est pas que c'était mauvais il y a 2 semaines, mais c'est normal. Tu sais, on l'a vu avec Nathan Rourke, qui sera le carrière partant des Lions de la Colombie-Britannique vendredi. Euh, Tu sais, quand tu reviens de la NFL, ça prend toujours un peu de temps parce que, veux ou veux pas, oui, tu es avec une équipe dans la meilleure ligue au monde, mais c'est que eux autres, ils sont dans leur camp d'entraînement. Donc, ils sont pas à la mi-saison habitués, tu sais, dans leurs affaires, mid-season form, tu sais, comme on dit en anglais. Donc, c'est sûr que eux autres, ça prend un peu de temps parce que ceux qui sont autour d'eux autres, leurs coéquipiers, ils vont à 100 000 à l'heure. Ils ont tout compris, ils connaissent le carnet de jeu, ils savent tout. Mais tu sais, quand tu reviens de la NFL, puis t'as pas été là pour le camp d'entraînement au mois de mai, puis t'as pas été là pour 10 premiers matchs de la saison, écoute, c'est une grosse partie de la saison, c'est plus que la moitié de la saison. Donc, c'est normal pour les gars comme Rourke, les gars comme Mac, même si c'est des joueurs étoiles, c'est toujours normal que ça va prendre une couple de semaines avant qu'ils ont des résultats. Tu sais, c'est juste normal. Donc, Mac, c'était pas terrible, c'était pas mauvais, c'était 3 attrapés pour 32 verges, il a été ciblé 8 fois. Je trouve que parce qu'on n'a pas eu de balado la semaine passée, on n'a pas parlé de la victoire contre les Hawks, mais je vais le mentionner. Je trouve que des fois, mon impression, ça ne veut pas dire que ça a été le cas, mais mon impression, c'est que on essayait trop fort, on forçait le ballon à Mac à un certain point dans ce match-là quand on aurait peut-être dû aller ailleurs avec le ballon. Tu sais, je pense qu'on voulait qu'Austin Mack connaisse un bon match, qui revient en force tout de suite. Tu sais, et c'est normal. Mais je pense que de ce que j'avais vu cette semaine, c'est ça. Tu sais, les blessures, c'est jamais idéal. Ça vient jamais à un bon moment. Mais il faut souligner le fait que euh, ces deux-là, quand même, la chimie, elle était là l'an passé. C'est sûr qu'Austin Mack était sur l'équipe d'étoiles de la Ligue, avec plus de 1100 verges sur réception. Mais là, tu sais, c'est sûr qu'on continuait à voir l'amélioration dans leur cas, côté chimie, corps arrière, receveur. Donc, je suis un peu frustré. La blessure, tu sais, ça vient gâcher tout ça. Les bonnes nouvelles, c'est que si ça devient une blessure à 6 semaines, euh, on dirait que Snead et Julian Grant sont proches. Tous les deux ont pratiqué cette semaine. Snead avait vraiment un bel attrapé euh, dans la zone profonde. Tu sais, c'est un attrapé de 40-50 verges euh, qu'il a réussi. Tu sais, il a l'air vraiment confortable, vraiment à l'aise. Même chose pour Julian Grant, de plus en plus à l'aise dans cette situation-là. Donc, euh, les deux se remettent de leurs blessures. C'est sûr à 10-1, on peut se permettre un peu. Et je sais que Jason Moss et Danny Machocha, ils pensent pas de cette façon-là parce qu'ils veulent gagner chaque match. Mais on peut être patient avec ces gars-là. On peut attendre qu'ils soient à 100% avant de les ramener parce qu'on veut qu'ils reviennent, oui, mais on veut qu'ils restent en top shape pour le reste de la saison. Tu sais, Keon Julian Grant l'an passé, il est revenu de blessure, il s'est blessé de nouveau. Je pense pas que les deux blessures étaient liées. Mais tu sais, on veut mettre les chances de notre côté que les joueurs soient rendus à 100%. Euh, donc, c'est ça. Donc, la bonne nouvelle, c'est que si c'est une blessure à 6 semaines pour Austin Mack, on va dire que Snead et Julian Grant, à ce moment-ci, on va dire que ça a l'air de ce qu'on a vu à la pratique, ça a l'air qu'ils reviennent bientôt. Euh, donc, ça devrait quand même être assez intéressant de ce côté-là. Pas de nouvelles sur Philpott, mais imaginez-vous même si c'est juste 3 des 4 receveurs qui manquent en ce moment qui reviennent, tu sais, ça soit Philpott, Mac, Julian Grant, ou Snead, Julian Grant, Mac, ou Philpott, Mac et un des deux, tu sais, je sais pas, mais si 3 des 4 receveurs de ces 4-là reviennent, puis là, tu as Rambo, Reggie White Jr. qui est de retour dans la formation partante, et que tu as Cole Speaker, ben, tu sais, c'est quand même c'est des grosses nouvelles pour l'attaque des Alouettes, là. Donc, mauvaise nouvelle côté Mac, bonne nouvelle côté Snead et même chose pour Keon Julian Grant. OK, qu'est-ce que les autres notes? On a mentionné Nate Behar, qui sera en entrevue avec nous autres bientôt, mais aussi P.O. Lestage qui a été blessé lors du premier match, la première séquence à l'attaque lors du dernier match. Euh, P.O. a pratiqué cette semaine, il a l'air en top shape, mais lui aussi il va prendre l'échauffement et ils vont voir après l'échauffement qu'est-ce que ça va donner côté blessure avec le stage. Mais je pense, de ce qu'on a vu quand même, il y a des bonnes chances qu'il joue. Philippe Gagnon est de retour. Je sais que les Alouettes ont, pour majoritairement, lors de la dernière rencontre, comme j'ai mentionné, le stage blessé sur la première, je pense que c'était le premier jeu du match. Mais Philippe Gagnon n'a pas joué. Il a été rayé de la formation tard parce qu'à cause c'était même pas une blessure, c'était une maladie. Donc, Philippe Gagnon sera à son poste de garde à droite et le stage, on va en savoir plus après l'échauffement vendredi soir. S'il n'est pas en mesure de jouer, j'imagine que c'est Jesse Gibbon qui prendra sa place dans la formation partante. OK. On va passer à des notes, les autres notes, parce qu'il y a quand même des bonnes nouvelles. Il y a des joueurs qui reviennent de blessures. On va en parler bientôt en anglais. Mais je veux juste, je veux continuer à parler pas de la blessure à Mac, mais la blessure à Mac ouvre la porte pour un autre joueur. Euh, Là, c'est José Barbone qui va jouer comme partant. Il porte le numéro 80. Peut-être vous l'avez remarqué lors d'un match, je pense que c'était semaine 2 contre les Elks à Edmonton. Il a joué, il n'a pas réussi à en attraper, il n'était pas de la formation partante, mais c'est quand même, il est habillé pour un match cette année. Et là, ça va être deuxième match, mais on va dire, ça a l'air de ce qu'on voit sur la charte des positions, ça a l'air que Barbone va jouer en tant que partant. Donc, tu sais, j'ai hâte de voir. On a vu plusieurs partants différents à cette position-là. Tu sais, on a vu Furvius faire des gros jeux. On a vu Speaker, Bahar, Reggie White, Rambo, Phil Pott, Julian Grant, tu sais, les Tyler Snead, même il a joué trois quarts d'une game à date cette saison. Il y a plusieurs receveurs qui ont réussi des jeux explosifs. Et j'en ai parlé un peu avec Jason Moss cette semaine parce que les Alouettes sont premiers pour les passes de 30 verges et plus réussites. Les Lions sont deuxièmes, mais les Alouettes sont à 27, les Lions sont à 21 ou 23, si je ne me trompe pas. Il n'y a aucune autre équipe qui a dépassé ou qui a atteint le plateau euh, des 20 passes explosives. Et ça, c'est pas nécessairement juste des longues passes, ça peut être des passes courtes où le receveur déjoue plusieurs joueurs défensifs et qui court pour 30 verges. Mais les Alouettes ont quand même un attaque explosif et ça avec trois carrières différents. C'est sûr que les Lions l'ont fait avec deux carrières différents. Jake Dolegala a joué aussi, mais ça n'a pas bien été, lui qui a été libéré. Mais tu sais, c'est quand même impressionnant de voir le nombre de receveurs différents qui ont réussi des réceptions de plus de 30 verges et euh, les corps arrière qui ont changé parce qu'on a utilisé Fajardo, Alexander et Caleb Evans aussi. Donc, quand même impressionnant de voir que les Alouettes sont premiers à ce chapitre-là et c'est de loin, comme j'ai mentionné. Donc, c'est sûr que les Lions sont bons. Les Alouettes n'ont jamais affronté Nathan Rourke depuis qu'il est rendu professionnel. Il y a 2 ans, il a été blessé. L'année d'avant, quand ils ont joué contre les Lions, c'était avec Vernon Adams comme corps arrière. Et même l'an passé, c'était comme Vernon Adams comme corps arrière à BC. Euh, il y a 2 ans, c'était Pipkin et VA. Donc, c'est la première fois que les Alouettes vont affronter Nathan Rourke. Et en cette deuxième moitié de saison, les Alouettes vont affronter les Lions 2 fois. On les a pas affrontés encore. Je pense que c'est la seule équipe qu'on n'a pas affrontée encore parce que les Alouettes ils ont joué contre les Bombers, ils ont joué 2 fois contre les Hawks, 2 fois contre les Rough Riders à Saskatchewan, Calgary une fois. Les équipes de l'Est, ils ont toutes joué. Donc, les Lions, c'est vraiment la seule équipe dont les Alouettes n'ont pas affronté encore. Donc, j'ai hâte de voir Nathan Rourke contre cette défensive. Et j'ai hâte de voir comment ça va se dérouler entre ces deux unités-là. Et c'est sûr que William Stanback revient. Lui qui a connu vraiment un gros match à Victoria la semaine passée contre le Rouge et Noir d'Ottawa. Un match euh, qu'ils ont tu sais, c'est un match que les Lions ont gagné assez facilement, qu'ils ont dominé. Je pense que c'était 31-6 à la mi-temps. Ça finit 38-12. Euh, But yes, donc c'est ça qui est ça avec les Lions de la Colombie-Britannique, mais ça devrait être tout un duel. Les Lions sont en première position dans l'Ouest à 6-6. Les Alouettes, premier dans l'Est, 10-1. Donc, moi, je pense que ça va vraiment, je le dis à chaque semaine, mais je pense que ça va être un match quand même assez serré, avec des jeux explosifs, mais quand même, les défensives sont bonnes. Donc, tu sais, je pense qu'on va marquer des points, mais ça me surprendrait pas si on voit la défensive des Alouettes marquer. Ça me choquerait pas du tout. Bon, OK, on va passer en anglais. On va aller avec notre entrevue avec Nate Behar. So we're going to go over to English now. We'll get to a couple of news and notes because there's some players that are coming back to the lineup. We mentioned in French that Austin Mack is out, got hurt in practice on Thursday. Jose Barbone is in the starting lineup, making his first start. I believe it's his first start, second game for the Alouettes. But before we get into who's coming back into the lineup, I'd like you to listen to this interview with veteran Canadian receiver, former Edmonton Elk, Ottawa Red Black, and now Montreal Alouette. He's done very well. He's a game-time decision for this game. I spoke to him after Wednesday's practice. Hopefully he can play. It's not really an interview about the game. It's just about his journey and the things that he's experienced in football and in his private life. I think it's a fascinating story with Nate Behar. But we did start with Nate in French. He's an Ottawa guy. And so Nate does speak. Somebody told me that Nate spoke a little bit of French. So we started just the first question in French. He showed off his French and then we moved to English. But here is my one-on-one interview with Alouettes receiver Nate Behar. Premièrement, j'ai entendu une rumeur que tu parles très bien le français. Je savais pas. Est-ce que tu es prêt à me montrer un peu de français? Et où est-ce que tu as appris ton français?
Oui, je suis fier de jouer pour Montréal, pour sa ville. Avec cette équipe. C'est magnifique, là. Yeah. Ouais, je vais essayer. J'ai étudié en français dans la première année, la première, troisième année. Et aussi, j'allais à une, comment tu dis, school d'art, art school.
Yeah.
And there, you know, on va parler en français chaque jour. Je pense. I think, yeah, chaque jour. So, yeah, it's not bad.
That's really impressive. I had no idea. But so, I mean, obviously you got to Montreal a little deeper into the season, I'm sure, than you would have liked. Just when you got the opportunity to come here, though, what did it mean to you to come in and suit up for the team that was, you know, defending the Grey Cup and the team that got off to a really nice start?
Yeah, I mean, that was everything. That's the reason I'm here. You know, had some conversations elsewhere and things like that, and it just didn't feel right. So was, you know, I was happy at home. I think that's the first thing I told PY. I said, PY, my life is really bleeping good. I think I said there's probably a swear word in there. But you know, talked to Coach Moss for a while, and you know, called my partner, my girlfriend, and was like, there's a lot of stuff that makes a whole lot of sense. She was the first one to be like, go do it. And I'm so happy. I'm really am. It's been awesome to just have a great winning, healthy experience in football, especially, you know, people often talk about, you know, kind of the ugly stuff of pro sports, right? And so after six years of it, not always on winning sides that, you know, we're making everything happen, you can get a little sour, you can get a little grumpy and grouchy. So it's been great to get to have some fun, and that's what they do here so well, is have fun.
You can tell me to mind my own business, but I got to ask. Yeah. I mean, life was great back home. What were you up to?
Yeah, so a couple of things going on. Me and my girlfriend, we have a retreat company, so we take people to tropical destinations for fitness and yoga retreats.
Come on.
Yeah, so Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica, all that good stuff. I also have some management clients that I manage their business, primarily Catherine Nicolai. She's one of the biggest podcasters in the world, so I help her with all of her business outside of her show. And then the main kind of 9 to 5, I say in air quotes, a strategist at a growth marketing firm, so a marketing company. And that's been a blast, called Godspeed in Ottawa.
So you came to Montreal and you put El Salvador and all those tropical places on hold. So that's how I know you really want to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. It's almost like it was destined. Our next retreat, we are leaving on, I believe I might get my dates wrong, but I think it's November 21st. And I look at a calendar, yeah. And there's something very special planned on November 20th. So it's almost like it was meant to be. I don't know if it's a jinx to say what's on the 20th, but there's something really nice circled there. So it all ended up working out pretty well. And you know, my my boss and the team over at Godspeed in Ottawa, they're ecstatic to have me here. I help out and still chip in on, in the PM. I'm still working with them and jumping on calls and stuff, but they've been very flexible with me here, and it's just been a blast.
So give me your ideal vacation. Walk me through the best vacation that you've ever been on. It doesn't have to be with work, but just the best vacation.
Costa Rica. El Salvador is a number 2. Costa Rica is perfect. In somewhere like a Santa Teresa, potentially Nasada, something like that. You get, it's a perfect time of year where there's a swell coming in, so you get sunrise surf. Get a little afternoon lift or yoga in, maybe a little workout, a couple cervezas. They can take a nap around 2, and then go for some dinner with some friends and a couple more drinks in the evening, and you repeat that 4, 5, 6 days, 4, 5, 6 weeks even. That's a life like no other. It's surfing. If you have never done it, I implore you to try. I implore everybody to try.
How long? I've never surfed a day in my life. How long would it take me to be halfway decent at it? I'm relatively athletic. I don't know if that helps me in this situation.
It absolutely does, because it's just balance and kind of and feel. And you got to have a disgustingly high pain tolerance and because it's just punishment. It's honestly just punishment for the first weeks, honestly. But if you were somewhere for 2-3 weeks and you're committed to kind of going every day for an hour and feeling it out, you'll be standing up and whatnot in those 2-3 weeks. And then after 2-3 months, you're hopefully getting to a place where you're reading the ocean well, you're turning on the wave and all that sort of stuff. But it's a special feeling, man.
Yeah, I would have pursued a CFL career if there was no contact, so that should tell you all about my pain tolerance. Before we get to what's going on here in Montreal this season, want to ask you a little bit about Ottawa. That night in 2021 where you had to play emergency quarterback. I know Dom Davis was hurt, and then somebody else got hurt too. I forget who the backup quarterback was that game, and you were out there, and I'd imagine that you had some semblance of preparation. I'm sure you threw a ball at some point, but I'm not going to lie to you, I kind of felt bad for you, and that's it. What's going through your mind when you had to play emergency quarterback for Ottawa that night in 2021?
I'm not going to lie. It was going to be the most fun. I called all the receivers in on the sideline. So Lapo comes up to me, our head coach and OC, and he goes, Nate, because at first I think when Dom got injured and Matt got injured, I think there was 6 or 7 minutes left.
Who was the backup quarterback?
It was Matt Nichols.
And
Dom,
right.
yeah. So Dom was a hamstring, and then Matt was a shoulder, re-injured his shoulder, was already banged up. And yeah, it was a 4-point game. Yeah. So Lapo comes up to me and is like, this is pro football. We have to go try to win. And I looked at him, I was like, of course we do. I was like, come on, man. Are you kidding me? I pride myself on being again, air quotes, the smart receiver. Yeah. So I had done some, on day 4s, I would go through the meshes just in case and get a couple under center snaps in case I ever had to do a sneak. But I mean, I know the reads, in theory. It's obviously very different putting it in practice, but called the receivers in and said, guys, look, this is going to be one of the funniest stories we have regardless. If you don't want me to throw the football, put your hand up. We have one receiver who will remain nameless, sorry.
He put his hand up?
I said, okay, cool. I looked at the other guys and said, look, they're going to try to pick everything. Everybody wants some free stats. I'm just pumping it and bombing the ball as far as I can. So either go make a play or don't. We'll have a beer after and laugh. And
oh, my God.
Then sadly, I think we had a turnover on specials, and they kind of extended the lead to 2 scores. So then we just kind of were like, all right, run the ball out. But to call my own number on his own read once, that was fun. That wasn't called. So in the huddle, I was like, I'm pulling this, Tim. Zone read. I said, tackle, leave the backside end. We're reading it. He's like, all right, cool. So it was fun, though.
So do you remember what your final stat line was? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It was 1 for 1 for 7 yards. I completed a screen. I got roasted for my drop because I knew that in theory on a screen you're supposed to bring the D-line in by dropping, but apparently I looked like I was a little afraid. I was running too quick, and then a 1 rush for a couple yards and a first down, I think. So it was solid.
That's crazy. The emergency quarterback comes in and somebody actually raises their hand to say, "Hey, I don't want you to throw the ball." That's nuts. Do you remember what film breakdown was like that following game? Did they give you? I mean, it must. I know you guys lost, but that must have given you, some semblance of praise.
I'm trying to remember. I think there was thanks for kudos to stepping in and obviously and things like that. But it was in a dark time of the season where I feel like it was if you're 500 or a couple more wins, then I'm sure that conversation is ha look at this, guys. But at that point in the year, it's kind of it was a room. I don't know if there's room for many jokes.
Sure. You got Ottawa coming up because I think you missed the first Ottawa game. You weren't here yet. You got a couple on the schedule. I mean, how much have you looked ahead to that, and what's that going to mean to you?
That'll be fun. I mean, it is what it is.
But you want to smack them around. I know you want to smack everybody around, but you want to in particular smack those guys around.
Without a doubt. I mean, that goes without saying. It's obviously one of those ones where you're like, it's circled and all your friends and friends of friends and friends of friends of friends of friends are, hey, I'm see you on the 21st. We're coming to the game. And so it's obviously going to be, it's going to mean something and mean a little bit more. A lot of the guys are still there that I played against and went against every day in practice and stuff like that. So that'll be fun to be live and actually get to hit back a little bit with some pads on. But shoot, I mean, I've been around long enough. You end up playing against people that you played with all the time. Obviously, the big thing in my head is, they're in second. Would it mean more to put a little more gap because of who it is? For sure. But hey, I've been in this thing for 7 years. Yeah.
You also, I know you spent most of your time playing for Ottawa, but you played for Edmonton as well at the very beginning. You and J. Moss crossed out there, right? You must have crossed. I mean, how is he? Did you notice a difference between how he was back then and how he is now? Has he changed at all?
I would say he's grown. Change has negative connotations sometimes. In the same way that he was, always himself, and that's what galvanized the guys and made guys want to play for him. That's stayed the exact same. He's leveled out a little bit. He was quite infamous online for his firiness on the sidelines. So that's toned down a little bit. And I'll say as well, he's grown a lot as a communicator. Not that he wasn't a great communicator before, because he always did communicate sort of where he's coming from, but he's done such a good job of weaving it in to the annual plan. I can tell, even joining a third of the way in, like I have. It's just he does and people buy in. A lot of times coaches will have their isms and their random talking points that guys kind of roll their eyes at. He's done such a great job of being able to communicate them with passion and making guys understand why and where, and that's really impressive, because for a guy who's super raw naturally, to then also have that extra element, that's a pretty special combo. And then obviously as a OC and offensive mind, he's always had that.
What's the worst he's ever ripped into you? Or do you have a funny J. Moss story for me?
I don't know if I've ever gotten it too bad. I was young, and it was kind of just whenever I made my mistakes, it was kind of oh my gosh, rookie. It was more like the eye roll, But I think the Gatorade coolers that used to get the beat down were sort of the highlight of those first couple of years. I think I've seen him put a couple of headsets in the graveyard as well. But it was, we always kind of loved it, to be honest. It was hell yeah, you're going to play hard. And it was great because it was him and Mike Riley. And Mike was the baddest dude of all time playing quarterback in terms of gushing blood every game. So the two of them were two peas in a pod. They set the tone for us. It was funny.
How about for you, what you've been able to do on the field this year? You've played 5 games, you have 8 catches. I just feel like you're a steady vet. You come in here, the ball's thrown to you, you catch it, you move the chains. Just how do you feel about your overall game and where you at?
It's been steadily improving. Obviously on a team that's won a Grey Cup with everybody here other than Rambo, who's dynamite in his own way. You're coming into an offense that has so much chemistry together. They've done so much together, so it's not one of those situations where you're going to come in and start playing Randy Moss and begging for targets and pounding the ground. So it's just building trust, doing what's asked of you, so that whatever happens in the course of a game, whether you got to fill in for somebody or come in and just make your plays when you can, you try to do that. So obviously as a receiver, you always want 3 targets to turn into 5 and 5 to turn into 7 and all that good stuff. But it comes with time. It's going to. They're winning for a reason. We're winning for a reason. The offense is humming. Cody Fajardo is the most accurate quarterback in CFL history for a reason. So it's just week in, week out, being prepped, knowing your role as well, and then if that gets a chance to expand, then you relish it and you play through it.
What kind of adjustment do you have to make when you go from Cody to Davis back? Because that ball comes in, there's Davis can fire that football. Cody is a little bit different. I don't want to say more touch, but there's certainly a lot of touch there, and he's very accurate. But what kind of adjustment do you have to make? Because some of those passes from Davis come in, and I'm like, shoot, how do these guys still have fingers?
Yeah, absolutely. Say the guy with Davis, it's so much of it wants to be downfield, wants to gun it in, and he's trusting his arm to make miraculous throws, which he does. And so when you're that primary secondary, it's making sure you're there on time, racing across the face of the DB. And then honestly, I will say the speed of the ball, sometimes I think from outside the field, it's a little over. You don't really think about it when you're playing. If you can catch a football, you can catch a football. sometimes it does jump on it does jump up on you. And then with Cody, obviously with his experience, it's like you gotta know and hit your mark and stay alive at all times. Not that Davis is not getting through his reads, he is, but he's really going to get that thing out there and then with Cody, it's managing that pocket and oftentimes getting to 4. I think on my 4 catches last week, I wasn't anything earlier than the third read, and so you know that with the vet, and Davis is getting there too. We saw a lot of that, especially as the starts went on. So it was a pleasure playing with both. I was unbelievably impressed with Davis. Not having been here and seen him through camp, he's special. Absolutely.
Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Interesting guy. Got a lot going on, but felt like the Alouettes were the perfect fit for him, and that's why he left his businesses aside, and that's why he is here with the Alouettes, and he served a purpose. I mean, good possession receiver, reliable hands, guy who's really stepped in. Him and Furvius have played well in the absence of Tyson Philpott and Keon Julian Grant. All right. We mentioned the bad news with Mac out. We did mention as well that Behar is a game-time decision. We mentioned that P.O. Lestage is a game-time decision. Just want to make sure those in English who only speak English understand that as well if you haven't seen the depth chart. But if you haven't seen the depth chart, there is good news. So Mac is out, and the good thing is that there are players coming back. So Reggie White was placed on the practice roster ahead of the last game that they played. He's back in the starting lineup. They were able to get him in. They were able to make it work ratio-wise because they took out an American offensive lineman, Donnie Ventrelli, dressed as a backup, which was a good thing because he ended up playing because Lestage got hurt. But Ventrelli comes out. Reggie White comes in. So Reggie White back in the starting lineup. On special teams, the Owls are going to get a big boost on special teams. Frederic Chagnon, his stint on the 6-game injured list is over. He had a knee injury. I think he suffered that against Calgary. He's back in. I know he's an important part of the special teams. Defensive back Crevon LeBlanc, he got hurt. I think it was game 2 in Edmonton. No, that's not accurate. He played 4 games. Crevon LeBlanc had played 4 games. When did he get hurt? I think it was in Toronto that he got hurt. So LeBlanc came out. Yes, it was on the road in Toronto. So LeBlanc came out, but he had 4 special teams tackles in 4 games. That averaging a special teams tackle per game is excellent. He was very good on special teams, made an impact covering, very good DB as well. So Crevon LeBlanc, number 29, is in. And I think the one that people will probably be most excited about is Tyrell Richards, finally healthy enough to get back. Animal on special teams, played a little bit of defense as well at the beginning of the year. Got hurt the first game in Winnipeg, so it's great to see T. Rich back in the lineup, and those guys will give a boost on special teams. The special teams coverage has been good, but when you can add those guys, players with that kind of experience in the NFL and CFL, guys who've done it at a high level on special teams, it's really important. So LeBlanc, Richards, Chagnon, Barbone, and Reggie White Jr. are back in. KD Davis, Micah Roan, Donnie Ventrelli, Austin Mack, and Anthony Federico come out of the lineup. So those are the changes. I know the Owls, you may have noticed this week, the hardcore fans will notice that at the beginning of September every year, when the NFL final cuts happen, each CFL team is able or they're allowed to expand their practice roster. And so you can expand by 5. So the Alouettes did that this week. They added Michael Herzog, who's a small running back / returner, a Canadian who they drafted, I believe was the 6th or 7th round this year in the Canadian college draft. Got cut after training camp, but he's back. They also added Trey Thomas, a linebacker who went to training camp with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Noureddin Nouili, who was an offensive lineman from Nebraska, signed with the New Orleans Saints. He's a global player. From Germany. The Owls drafted him in the 2nd round of the global draft. He's here. Ed Montelis, an offensive lineman from the University of North Carolina. Philippe Lemire Cardinal, who's a name that you'll probably remember. He was a star at the University of Montreal, was drafted or signed by the Ottawa Red Blacks, and now is a Montreal Alouette. He's on the practice roster as well. So Phil Lemire Cardinal, local boy. Nice to see him here as well, defensive end. So the practice roster is jammed. And so, yeah, that's the latest with the Montreal Alouettes roster. That's who's in, who's out. It'll be interesting to see. I'm always fascinated by the guys who show up late on the practice roster after NFL cuts, because they don't usually, if you're new to the CFL, you don't usually get in the lineup between, unless there's a lot of injuries, but you're usually setting something up. If they like you, they'll bring you to training camp next year, and there you'll have an opportunity to earn yourself a spot. I mean, it's happened time and time again. I think back to, I think Josh Donovan was added to the roster a little before practice roster expansion, but they put him on PR last year. They liked what they saw, brought him to training camp. Jamar McGloster gets hurt. Boom, all of a sudden, this guy started 11 games at right tackle for the Alouettes. So these are things that happen. And then sometimes it doesn't work out. If you remember last year, Cameron Brown, a receiver from, I believe it was East Carolina, was brought in, and he showed up well, practiced well, got to training camp, got beat out. But yeah, I think it's an impressive thing you can do to set yourself up for success the following year. But that's just how it works in the CFL. I know it seems far away. Next May seems like an eternity away, and we got a lot to deal with in the here and now. But it's still the way the league works. And if you do practice well, you get invited to camp, and then you have an opportunity to make your living playing football, which is awesome and pretty cool. Okay, that's all the time we have right now. There's a lot of people going to be at the stadium. I think it's trending towards a sellout. I never like using that word before it happens, but the Owls announced on Wednesday that they had sold over 22,000 tickets for the game. Based on the information that I have, the latest information that's not even out there yet, we got an email internally saying that there were about 300 tickets left. So if you don't have tickets for this game on Friday night and you're listening to this, hurry up, because there's a chance that you're not going to be able to find tickets. I know a lot of tickets are singles, but there are a couple of pairs left here and there. So more than a couple, but there are some pairs here and there, not very many. If you want to come to the game, I have a bunch of people that messaged me after they saw the 22,000 people in attendance, or that they hit the 22,000 mark. People messaging me like, hey, can you get me tickets? I can't get tickets. Like there's that few left. And I don't usually have tickets to give away anyway, but people like to ask me. But there are none hiding. There's no tickets that they're going to release before the game. Like, this is it. This is the final batch. When there's none left, there's none left. I know people like to wait to the last minute, but do not wait to the last second. Don't walk to the stadium without tickets thinking that you're going to be able to buy them at the gate. You're not going to be able to buy them at the gate. That's the way it's trending. So if you want to come watch the Alouettes and Lions battle it out on the hill, on the mountain, make sure you get your tickets right now. And depending on when you're listening to this podcast, it may be too late, but you still have time as of right now. So go check it out. There are tickets remaining. Very few pairs are left. There are some singles as well. But make sure, I don't want you to miss out on a lovely night of football. Watching the Alouettes, watching Nathan Rourke, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. The numbers for the podcast continue to grow. I appreciate it very much. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another podcast. The Alouettes are in Calgary. Les Alouettes seront à Calgary la semaine prochaine. Je l'ai mentionné rapidement en anglais, mais hier, on a annoncé mercredi qu'on a franchi les 22 000 billets vendus. De la dernière information que j'ai, il y a un courriel à l'interne qui a circulé qui dit qu'il y a environ 300 billets qui restent. Il y a des billets individuels, mais il y a quelques paires aussi. Donc, si vous pensez attendre à la dernière minute pour venir au stade, acheter vos billets, ça fonctionnera pas. S'il vous plaît, si vous voulez être là, achetez vos billets parce il restera plus rien très bientôt. On s'en va pour un sell-out. Donc c'est ça. Attendez pas trop longtemps. Merci tout le monde. On se croise la semaine prochaine quand les Alouettes vont affronter les Stampeders à Calgary samedi prochain. Bonne fin de semaine, bon football et on se recroise dans une semaine.